everybody, welcome to Course Gaming. I am Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
Elden Ring came out, if you have not heard yet. Apparently it's a big deal.
It is, yeah.
So, Doug is all about these kind of games. And you've been playing, what, good 50, 60 hours? 40?
80.
Dear Lord. 80 hours worth of Elden Ring, which is exactly 80 hours longer of Elden Ring than I will ever play. And you still haven't finished it, right?
No, I have not finished it. I Souls games are usually take me 30 to 40 hours. Usually. I thought this one might be 60. When I was getting near 80, I just kind of like did a quick, like, how far along am I? It's like, I got another 20, 30 hours. So, like, this might be a good time to record. Because while it's still fresh and I don't hate this game, because it's all long. I had no idea. I felt like this game's longer than Persona 5. Like, what the hell?
Are you just doing dumb stuff? Like, are you just not like? Are you doing the like? I'm gonna go to every little corner and look at every little. Okay. Because that normally makes it take longer.
Yeah.
So, why is this the greatest game of all time?
Why is it? I'm glad. I was curious if you're going to ask, is it? The answer is yes.
I know you all have to know the answer is yes, but anyway.
Yeah, it is. It is sad. It is sadly the best game I've ever. It's sadly the best game I've ever played. I don't know if it's my favorite game. It is the best game I've ever played. And your question is, what was your question?
Why is this the best game that's ever been made? That seems to be the general consensus from the internet.
It created an open world where you never do the same activity twice. Which is insane. It's the game that is, I think we've talked before about like the type of open world we like. It's like, we don't like really big, expansive worlds. We like when they're smaller and denser and have more interesting activities. They're like, what if we just did an open world, like the biggest open world that also had a lot of dense, unique activities? It's, what else does it do? They add the mystery back into open world games, which I think is sorely missing. I think I will talk about. I tried to avoid talking about Elden Ring in the Horizon review. I can't. I have to talk about it here because it's just the most recent one I played. In Horizon, or let's just say any open world, when you see a marker on the map, you actually know what's going to be there. It is a bandit camp. So okay, well, when I go to a bandit camp, XYZ will happen. I'll get these rewards out of it, and then I'll move on my way. In Elden Ring, you never have any idea when you get into a situation of what's happening next. There could be a little dungeon. You've been through 10 little dungeons. You have an understanding of how little dungeons work. And all of a sudden this little dungeon turns to a giant dungeon, and all of a sudden that giant dungeon suddenly has some major impact on the story, and it was just some random side thing you did. When you go through this like unique sort of ruins, the reward at the end is always something that you're not expecting. It's never like, because I feel like with just any sort of open world game, you have an idea of what the reward is. Yeah. And I think in this one, you have no idea what the reward is. You don't know what the activity is when you come upon something. And I think it just it ends up creating a humongous open world that you never know what you're going to get. And I don't think there's any open world that's like that.
Not that I can think. Is that stressful? That sounds really stressful. But I feel like this game's supposed to be stressful.
It's not stressful. It's the only time I've played an open world where I feel like I will miss something, and I actually, in a way that, so I hate going back to Horizon Zero Dawn. If there's a bandit camp and I go by it, I don't really feel a need to ever go to that bandit camp ever again. It's like, I've done 3 bandit camps. I know what a bandit camp is. And in this one, though, because you just never know what's going to happen, you just always want to see what's happening next. You're never skipping over anything because you're just like, this could be something, or it could be nothing. It could be a quick one in and out. Like, I don't know if you watch Rick and Morty, but it's like an adventure in and out in 1 minute sort of thing. Or it's going to turn into like a 3-hour excursion where suddenly you're going all over the map. It's I love that.
That sounds so stressful. Because in my mind, I'm like, I have time. Because in my mind, I go, I like that, like, if I'm doing an open world game, I like going,
Hmm.
okay, this is a main quest. If I'm going to come upon
Yeah,
this, I probably need to have an hour right now to play. This is
yeah,
a bandit camp. I need 5 minutes to kill these
yes,
guys
sure,
and move on. Where this is making it sound like it's like I'm getting myself into something, and if I'm going like, I only have 15 minutes, should I start this thing? Well, maybe I can be done with it. Maybe that stresses me out, like not knowing. Like I get the
sure,
surprise element, but like
yeah, yeah.
that almost sounds stressful to me. And again, I'm not a Souls person, so this might
No,
just
no,
be this. But I think that might just be part of it, where it's like from the little I've played, it feels like that's always the feeling I have. Is part of the reason I don't like it is because I never know. Like, I can't just pause this damn thing, and I can't just stop
mhm.
here. I need to go full in through it.
Well, I would say the one thing, and this is probably getting a larger discussion of like things that makes it different than other Soul game, is really liberal checkpoints. So while the activity may not be 15 minutes long, you're going to be like 10 minutes before you hit the next checkpoint. So
Okay.
there's like tons and tons of checkpoints. So like, so there's a huge dungeon that all of a sudden I came upon. It's still split up into 5 different smaller dungeons, so to speak, or just like five
Yeah.
different to the next checkpoints. So and it's nicing. It's really nice with this like very liberal checkpoint because it's always a good. You always have a time to stop. I
Okay.
feel like with a lot of just games in general now, just like games I really enjoy, where you just sit down and it's like, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours playing this game. This one, it just always gives you a nice hopping off point. It's like, okay, you're sitting.
Okay.
Your character literally takes a rest. They sit down, they cross their legs, and you can quit. It's a good time. So you're always setting the pace of how it is.
Okay.
It's while these surprises are coming, if it's like a boss battle, your boss battle is only going to take like 15 minutes if it's an easy one. If it's a hard,
See,
if it's a hard one, they let you know. If it's a hard one, they let you know it's coming. There's definitely a lot of fanfare before a big boss battle.
Okay.
But no, I think it took Breath of the Wild's formula and I think did a much better job of what Breath of the Wild was doing. Because I think with Breath of the Wild, I mean, I will start with like I'm not a huge fan of Breath of the Wild. I didn't particularly enjoy it that much, but I think one of the weaknesses of it was that whatever you were, so like let's say you saw something off a distance, like you can go there and you spend a lot of time getting to that thing. It's only gonna be one of a small handful of reward types. It's gonna be
Yeah.
like a Korok seed. It's going to be the puzzle dungeon. Or a shrine, or it's
Yeah.
gonna be maybe a breakable weapon. So could only be this small handful of rewards. But then when you're playing this one, it's like you never know what the reward is because just playing the thing is rewarding because it's going to be a unique boss. It's going to be a unique dungeon. It's going to be a mechanic you may have never seen before. So I think it just made that reward aspect that I felt like I was missing from Breath of the Wild that much stronger. And I think that's what keeps me playing is that just like because every scenario you come into has some sort of new wrinkle that you haven't seen before. Even the same enemies, they'll do something with the enemies or do something with the scenario where it's like they're set up in a different way, in a different that makes them more threatening or less threatening. So the reason I'm taking 80 hours, like, because I'm taking my time because I'm seeing everything.
Yeah.
I enjoy this game is not about going through the main story. You can, they tell you at the very beginning. I mean, the plot of Elden Ring is that there's a ring. It broke. 5 different people got pieces of it. Go kill those 5 guys. That's the game. I killed the first guy hour 10. Killed the second guy hour 50. Hour 40. Just because I'm spending so much time exploring. I think it's the big thing that like the big takeaway for me was just that it made a world where it's just awesome and it's a fun world. It's a cool spooky world. It's funny. It's a very funny game. Because there's just so many side activities, they know how to mess with the player and not in a like, haha, we're being jerks, but in a haha, look at this weird, crazy character design we did. That's just very silly and kind of a silly scenario, and it's like a one-off joke, and then you kind of move on to the next thing.
Is it Yakuza like in that? Because that's kind of like, again, from an outside perspective, it's
Sure.
like Yakuza, you get the dumb sub-story. It's like, oh, you got to do blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this is just some
Mm-hmm.
goofy, dumb thing. And then, like, I'm on Twitter and I just see, like, there's this goofy looking monster I just fought. Like,
Yeah.
is that kind of the tone of, like, the side quests and side stuff like that? Where it's just silly, it's have some fun.
It depends. It depends. So it's not. I would say like with Yakuza, like they're almost always silly, like
There's a
90%
few.
silly.
Yeah, okay, 90,
Their
that's fair.
side stuff is like 90% silly. So it depends. Sometimes it can be really cool. Like there is a boss, and I guess I'm gonna say from this point on, it's like first of all, it's like I guess just big thoughts on the game, so I can get into spoilers. Big thoughts on the game. This game is not as accessible as everybody says. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. If one of your big issues, though, I will say with Souls game, if you were stuck with roadblocks, this game doesn't really have roadblocks. It has those 5 required bosses, but if you get stuck on a boss, you can just go somewhere else for another 10, 20 hours and then come back to that boss. Has really liberal checkpointing. It's a really, really cool game, but I think that you should definitely watch a few videos before you start this game up to know what you're getting into. And I'll leave it there. Now I'll get a little bit more spoilery as questions come up.
So, I know you're talking about boss, but question about that. So, let's say I run into dude with 1/5 of a ring number 2, and I try to fight him and I die in 30 seconds because I'm bad at Souls games.
Yeah.
When I go play for 20 hours, am I going to be like JRPG-esque where I just come back and I just tear that dude a new one in like 30 seconds? Or is it like, because I leveled
not 30
up so
seconds,
much
but you'll do it. Yeah, you can never get to the point where you're just gonna like completely tear the boss a new one, but you will come back like much stronger. So one of the things they do in the game is that there's a boss that's pretty early in the game that I was just like hard stuck on, just like completely. I was like, what the fuck is this game? This sucks. It's really early on, and I was like, man, it's one of the harder Souls bosses. Like I've beaten 3 of these games. It's one of the harder ones. But then the game at that point teaches you, just go somewhere else. Just don't fight this guy. Just go anywhere else. There's a whole world to explore. Go anywhere else and then come back. So you're not going to you're never going to get so powerful that you're just going to completely destroy the guy, but you will come back with a new tool set. One of the other ways to make the game easier than other Souls games, you have this cool thing called, you can summon monsters, which is super fun. And you can summon monsters during boss fights. So I think one of the issues with earlier Souls, not issues, but it was one of the things with the earlier Souls games, is you're the only guy who's fighting. So it can be kind of overwhelming when the boss is just like attacking you. Yeah. It's like, good God, just give me a break. But with summons, you can summon different monsters. So like one, maybe it's just like a guy that you can summon. That's like maybe it was a boss that you fought before. You can summon that guy, and then he sticks around until he dies. Or it can be like one of my favorite summons is I have like a small army of people. So it's like 5 guys on the field now. And at the very least, it's just giving me a break while the boss attacks those guys.
Okay.
So you're coming back to a boss. You not only are you stronger, but you're also coming with new tools to it. And that's how I ended up being that boss. Is I came to that boss because I had gotten a summon somewhere else, just off in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, actually, this was the key. And it's not that it's the only key. It just helped me personally get through that boss. Maybe it's a new weapon you found that has a special sort of thing to it. Or maybe it's a spell that you found that you really like and are good at using. So you're not going to, but you can definitely, in this game, you can definitely level up and come back and just destroy guys. Like if I go back to the starting area, it's just like one hit everything. Okay. So it does let you grind quite a bit. I'd say a lot more than other Souls games, because other Souls games, you just get to that boss and you're like, I guess I'm grinding in this little 5-foot square until I get to the boss, and this sucks.
AKA
but
what
no,
I
you
did
can
with Bloodborne.
Yeah. So it's not like that. So it's like if you're stuck on a boss on Bloodborne, you can go and then have another 10-hour adventure somewhere else in a different castle, completely different area. So it kind of alleviates a little bit of that issue. And again, it has much more liberal. Every boss right before has a checkpoint, like right at the gate. Like I think 2 of the 30 bosses I fought, because there's a lot of mini bosses. Yeah. I'd say like 2 of them actually had like I gotta go run back to the boss. But yeah, they almost completely got rid of that, unless they're being cheeky.
So
which they might be.
So okay, I'm actually slightly getting interested in this. Could I?
I knew my passion would kind of push through.
Sorry to derail this from where you probably want to go.
No, go for it. I actually thought I could maybe kind of convince you to try it.
So my question is, let's say I don't give a shit about these fifths of a ring, because I know in prior games the story is not a focal point. Like you're not playing it for like this huge narrative. Mm-hmm. Could I just get on my horse and just ride around and do like fun little things that aren't ungodly difficult for like 30 hours and just see the entire world? Or is it gated off? Like, could I just, I put it in and I just want to ride my horse. And I want to run around. I want to see this cool giant castle that I saw on Twitter. And I want to run around and see this cool giant monster. And then can I just do that?
Yes.
One of the few times I wish we did videos of this is as you slowly inch closer to the mic. They're just like, keep going. I got this. Yeah, you
there's a
can.
little bit there's a little bit of level gating, but it's never gated because you didn't beat a boss. It might just be like better if you're like a higher level in this area, but you can get like, let's say this area is just better if you're level 30. You can earn that level 30 doing
Whatever you want.
any sort of thing. Any sort of thing. And like I said, I don't think I think when you beat when you light spoilers, this is very light spoilers. When you beat a one of the 5 Elden Ring shard holders, you do get a big buff like thing to
Yeah.
equip that's just like more health. So it's but I would say maybe the first guy, if you beat that first boss, he gives you one. I used that one through I think the entire game. I've beaten most of the other ones, and I just used that the one I got from him. And like I was saying, like the second boss, it just took me a long time to find the second boss too. I was just like, he's around here somewhere. I don't know where he is. But it took me like 40, 50 hours to even get to this, to even find the second boss. But the thing was, I wasn't looking for them. I was just always like, oh, what's that thing off this? It's do, 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 do. Okay. And the thing, they do some really, really clever things with that game. I think, so one of the fun things is, I think other open worlds can do. I think other open worlds like to show it's like, we are a really big game. And
Yeah.
look at, and like when you open up a map screen, it's like, look how big our game is. And you haven't seen any of it yet. You know, it's like shrouded in mystery.
Yep.
Well, how this game works with its map system is that you kind of open when you get a new map, the map screen only expands to as much map as you own. So you're never quite sure how big the map is until you keep collecting more maps and like how big is this and they do some funny things to kind of really blow your mind of like, hey, you know, this is not your typical Souls game. This is a game that is much, much bigger. I will say that some of that kind of like the classic Souls experience stuff that maybe you wouldn't totally like. There's just like areas, like if you have a castle area, like that castle is going to play very similar to like a previous Souls game.
Okay.
But there's a ton of mini dungeons with like mini bosses that are much easier. Probably some of the easiest Souls bosses are like these like little mini dungeons. That doesn't mean they're not. It doesn't mean they're easy. It just means they're easier than other stuff. And I think the stuff like the summons really helps. But I think no, I think hopefully that answered your question because I think
Yeah.
because I killed the third guy at hour 70, so that is whatever
That's a chunk.
hours. Yeah, I did.
That's like
I was actually
60 hours more than I want to play of this game.
yeah, but I'm saying you can enjoy. I think you can enjoy a lot of this game without worrying to get, and even just seeing the boss, I think is a big enough reward. I think some of the boss in this game are just so fucking cool looking that even if I don't beat the boss, I'm like, you know, that was a cool boss. I think that was kind of like a reward in and of itself, which seems kind of weird. It's just like seeing the boss. And it's funny too. So with your map, you can lay down little markers. They have like a suite of like, kind of like very similar to Hollow Knight. You have like 5 different symbols you can lay down. And anytime there's a boss that is just like, well, that guy destroyed me. And when you hit a guy, you can usually tell if you can maybe beat him by like how much health you take off on that first hit.
Yep.
So if you take off a little sliver, it's like, I'm about to get destroyed. But then you could just drop down little points. So I just dropped down a little skull for any bosses that like I just couldn't beat. And it's like, I'll come back here later, maybe. I don't know. But the game is so good in the moment to moment game that the reward is never the thing at the end. It's always just the experience of getting to the thing, which I feel like a lot of open worlds don't do well. I think Breath of the Wild kind of did.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, but you get to climb up the thing, and it's like, well, I didn't find that super fun.
View. You got the cool view.
Yeah. Oh, one thing on cool views, this game has like really. I just kind of reminded me of Halo. I think when you're playing Halo Infinite, it has a lot of vistas where you kind of like get on top of a thing, you look around. It's like, I felt like the vistas in Halo felt like you just looked around. It's like everything looked exactly the same.
There's a lot of trees
it just looks,
over there.
Yeah, but with Elden Ring, because the scenery is so distinct, whenever you get to like a new vista, you're like looking around it going like, oh wait, where have I been, where have I not been? It's like so exciting seeing a gigantic castle that you just didn't know existed. You're like, wait, is that the one I went to before? It's like, no, that's a whole new thing that I just never went to. And it's just I don't know, it's got that really good just like, what's that thing off in the distance. The monster designs are really cool, and it's I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but I just think it's just it took that basic Souls formula of just like feeling really good to fight and just like and then like also reinvented open worlds. And the scenarios you do are like are really fun and weird, and it's not just like, oh, you get to fight this weird boss. You get to do like fun weird things. Like I'll do very light spoilers for some early stuff. I met a werewolf man by happenstance because I was talking to a vendor who I just talked to a few times, and he's like, "Hey, I think you'd really get along with this one guy. If you're in this area there's a guy howling at the moon, do this one very specific gesture." And I did that one specific gesture, and then he jumped down. It's this giant werewolf man who's just a very friendly guy, and you do some cool side stuff with him. Yeah.
So the side quests are like compelling enough that it's like, this is interesting in and of itself. It's not like, go collect your 3 things and you need to go kill this monster for me. They like have like
never. It's never anything like that. It's funny because sometimes people don't like this, and I think it's really fun. This is one thing that people hate about Souls games, is that the side quests are like really vague. It was funny. There's a character that you meet at the very beginning of the game where they say it's like, we may never see each other again. And you're just like, I just never knew if I would. I think I saw the character another 40 hours later, just happenstance, just being on the side of the road. It wasn't like a big moment. So yeah. It's cool when you meet these characters. You're never quite sure. They might give you an item, and you're like reading the item description, like, when did I ever use it? Like, when am I going to see this guy again? He's not going to say like, I'll meet you over here. You might run into them again. You might not.
Interesting.
So it's fun with these characters that are just kind of wandering around, because you'll just run into them in random places, like, oh shit, this is where you are now. And then maybe if they're there for a little bit, you can be like, okay, he's looking for something. Maybe I know where that might be. But there's never side quests where it's like, here's your checklist of stuff and you must go kill 5. It's never anything like that. Not a single one.
Does it have like some form of like quest log or something to keep track of this stuff? Or like, I guess my question is like, if I like stumble into this dude, will it give me some direction on where to go? Or is it just like, hey, one time I saw a tree and it had a pointy branch and that was pointed to the west. And if you go to the pointy tree that's pointing west and you walk 6 steps, and I have to remember all that? Or like, is it like a quest log and it's just like, here's an objective marker, go to the objective marker?
There's no quest log. There's no objective markers. People will hate this. I used a notebook.
There goes all your goodwill from me.
I have but it's interesting though, because the guy, but it kind of makes you hang on every word a character says, and if there's something like for the next step in their thing, they'll repeat it a few times. You talk to them like again, if you come back to the same spot, talk to them again. They're like, a very easy example. This guy's like, I am going to be in the Redmane Castle. It's in the south somewhere. And I was like, this is the big pot guy. He's just a giant pot.
Oh, the dude from the Game Awards?
Yeah, from the Game Awards. He's a big pot with arms.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to a fighting festival and I hope to see you there. It's at this castle in the south. And I was just like, okay, I'll just jot down castle in the south ? And then 20 hours later, I'm kind of wandering in the south, and I just had checked my notes, like Redmane Castle south. And I come upon Redmane Castle. I was like, okay, that pot guy is around here somewhere. I need to find this pot guy. So and the thing is, it's not like because their side stuff is like so simple. It's not like it's not a super elaborate thing. It's just like, guy needs dagger ? I don't know anything about. I don't know. I don't have a dagger to give this guy. I don't know what special dagger he's talking about. But it's like golden dagger ? And then like another character might, or they might not. And that's the thing that's like that people like or don't like about these games is like, you may just never run that character again. And like there's just like the Wolfman guy. I did another side quest with him, and then I just like never saw him again. He's like, I'll see you on many adventures. Maybe. He said something like along those lines, and I was like, just never saw him again. Might run into him. I don't know. Maybe not. But you're not. I'm not worried about completing his side quest. If it's a cool character, that's like you can go online and figure out where he's going to be next. I would say for most of the stuff, don't worry about it. So the side quests are these like kind of vague sort of things.
So you're basically just like aimlessly wandering, hoping you run into this guy again and to complete the side quest that you may, or like it doesn't even like register that this is officially a side quest. Like there's nowhere where it's like, you inherited quest from Werewolf Man. You're just like, he kept mentioning that the monster in the hills is bad. Is he implying that I should go kill monster? And like, is it that vague where it's like I don't even know if this is a quest or not?
Yeah, it's more the latter. It's more like the second part of like, very like, okay, for example, somebody will give you an item and you're like, what the fuck is this item? You'll read the description and you're like, okay. It's like, it doesn't tell you where to go. It doesn't like,
Yeah.
sometimes it actually be more explicit. It'll tell you exactly where to go. But sometimes it'll say like, this is an assassin's. I have a dagger now that I don't know where it goes. That's why I keep bringing up this dagger. I got a dagger. I don't know where it goes, but I might run into a character who's like, oh, is that the fabled dagger of whatever? And it's cool kind of running into these things where it just feels like happenstance that these like two random things kind of came together. So there are certain people who play these games and don't like that at all because like I want to complete every side quest. I think it's more enjoyable to just maybe or maybe not do it because it feels more natural and because when it does eventually collide and you accidentally do the next step in a side quest, it just feels amazing. It feels I don't know what it feels like. It's just a unique feeling in that in these games because sometimes those side quests can turn to huge adventures, and sometimes they just don't. And sometimes you just give a guy a dagger and then that's the end of the thing. So it's you just never quite sure what's going to happen next in a 100-hour long video game. And there's no game that's this long that I've ever played where I didn't know what's going to happen next to some extent.
Yeah.
Maybe the plot in games is that's where like when they start getting longer, it's like you don't know where the plot's going. It's like I don't even know where mechanically where this game is going, which is just really cool. Yeah, and it's got some of the coolest looking stuff just design wise I've ever seen. So like once your reward of finding an underground city all of a sudden just happening upon it, it just feels so cool. But it's a game where I think people who want to get everything are going to have a miserable time. It's a game where people are who don't like exploring are going to have a miserable time. But it's just a lot of my favorite stuff. It reminds me actually a lot of Subnautica, where in Subnautica, where you saw something off in the distance, you're like, what the fuck is this thing? You come upon it, it's like, what is this thing?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I got a sword. It's like, I don't know what the hell I'm getting. What is even happening here? Yeah, and and after 80 hours, like I'm excited to go back to it still. I don't feel burned out on it at all. I feel like I just kind of need to take a break just because I'm playing a lot of it, but not because I'm not disinterested in it. Yeah. You got any other questions? It's cool. It's a cool. I think you should try it.
See, and that's my issue with it is that, and it's the same issue I have with all of these games is they seem so cool, but I don't have the patience for it, and I hate I hate happenstance. Like again, it's that same like I was saying, if I'm going to something, I want to know or have some semblance of am I getting into a 15-minute thing or an hour thing. If I'm going to do this, like I don't want to go and wander around for 30 minutes to go like, oh, turns out what he was saying wasn't hinting that there's a side quest here. He just happened to have traveled from his village. And I don't know.
But in that area, you might find something.
But then I didn't do anything. Like that's my issue. Like my brain works so much in like task lists that like the thought of just like aimlessly wandering with like no 100% goal kind of stresses me out. Like the thought of just going like, okay, well, I went to this village to give a guy a dagger, but I ended up finding another guy who needs a turtle. And
there's so few guys though. I think it's less. I can understand what you're saying, like because I'm thinking like Horizon, we're just like building up a shit ton of different side quests.
Yeah.
In total, there's like 10 people in this game, like who talk. Maybe 15. I don't know, but it's for a 100-hour game. It's like it's not a lot of people. So like you wouldn't be worried about running into side quests. You'd probably just the more realistic scenario is like, let's say your thing is like this guy said maybe I vaguely need to go in this area. When I'm over there, I find a small little dungeon and get a cool new summon. I happen to walk by it. On my way there, I ran into a gigantic bear, and that bear dropped some cool club that I just never seen before. And then I searched around the area and I couldn't find this thing this guy was talking about. But I had these two really cool experiences, so I can probably come back. I'll just drop a little marker here to like question marker, and then come back here later at some point. Yeah, it's not a game for everybody. It's not a game for everybody. It's more. I wouldn't say if it's more approachable than those other games, but I feel like you're not going to run into the roadblocks like you do in the other Souls games.
Because that's what I had with Bloodborne. Is I put 5 hours in, I got to a boss, and it's just like I don't feel like I'm able to do this, and I tried it for like 4 hours, and I still couldn't do this. I was like, well, fuck this. So it takes that out. It's more accessible in the fact that you're not going to run into that flat out, I'm stuck, I can't do it. but it still has the same trappings of those, where it's okay, it's not as accessible because we don't have these, let's just say, conveniences for the player.
Did you? I guess with Bloodborne, here's a question I have for with you with Bloodborne. Did you? I mean, I know the bosses suck because they can just be roadblocks, but did you have fun getting to the bosses where you're kind of creeping around and like, oh, I got to get that guy, and then that was kind of like a little mini boss thing. Like, if you enjoy the parts in between, maybe you just didn't enjoy it all. It's kind of, maybe that's just what it is, and like you don't like it. But it's a lot of the in between that this game just really excels at. There are definitely bosses, but like that sort of in between is like, okay, I gotta pay attention, and there's like these guys I know are a little bit harder than these other guys, and I gotta like that's I mean that's all there and done really really well. Yeah, it's yeah, and you can warp to any safe spot you want at pretty much any time unless you're like deep in a dungeon. Then it usually won't let you warp. But if you have like a lot of souls, you can just warp to a safe spot and spend them. So there's not as much of that. I mean, I lost a ton of souls playing this game because I die a lot, but there's less opportunity for that because they give you just a lot more safe stuff. Yeah, and every item tells you exactly what it does, which is a very cool thing, and I really love that they did that. They took which is very annoying in the other games.
How could like, you? Yeah. You told me what I could do.
Yeah, like this is Sacred Tears. Like, you feel great sadness from this item. It'll be like, you feel great sadness from the item. By the way, it increases your dreariness level or whatever. It tells you very specifically what it does, which is nice. They took out a lot of the esoteric stuff, so the mystery is more in the immediate gameplay than like the back end menu stuff. Yeah,
that does sound nice.
It's the best game I've ever played. It is. People should try it. Don't buy it though. Don't just spend $60 without. Go rent it. Can people rent games anymore?
I don't think so. Go to your local Blockbuster.
Go to your local library. Your local library might have it. No, not your local library, but other local libraries.
Anyway, we are Workforce Gaming. You can follow us on Twitter at Workforce Gaming. Subscribe to us wherever you're listening. You can play potentially the best game ever, or not. We'll see you later.
Bye.